True Crime Society podcast contains adult themes and violence and is not intended for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised. And if you'd like to skip the intro or move to any specific part of the podcast, please refer to the timestamps listed in the episode description. Thank you. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the True Crime Society podcast with Stephanie and Olivia. It is August 23rd, 2026, and we are going to be doing a bit of a different episode. Today, we are going to be re-releasing our episode on Mica Miller because there is a Netflix documentary coming out about it, and we're going to be re-releasing our episode on Mica Miller with some new updates.
Yeah, so we did first cover this case back in May 2024. We've been following it for a while. Like if you're on our Instagram, you would have seen, over the years. I guess now it's crazy that it's been already 2 years since this episode. We've been posting stories about updates, but there is a new Netflix documentary coming out this week. So it's not out as of the time of recording, so we'll have to come back with our thoughts on the documentary, but it's called The Death of a Pastor's Wife, and it's due to be released, I believe, on August 26th. So in the next few days, it'll be released. And obviously, since it has been 2 years since we released this podcast, there have been some updates. So we thought we would re-release it, and at the end, we'll include the new updates. So if you are familiar with the case, you can use the timestamp and go straight to the updates. But that is the reason for this re-release. I feel like it is a really important case to discuss because it's a lot about coercive control and, physical and domestic abuse. And even when I was rereading our notes, because it has been a while now, I had forgotten what a horrible person JP is. So still remains horrible to this day. That's my opinion. Don't come at me. But I will be super interested to see what they have in the Netflix documentary, if there is anything new or if it's just more of an overview of the case. But we knew that people will have a renewed interest in Mica's case, which is why we've decided to re-release it.
I also have to say, we did all of our recording tonight, and I realized that I never hit the record button. So if you want to hear me sobbing about it, join our Patreon because I was crying. This sounds a little disjointed right now. That is why it's just me here right now, because Olivia was smart and backup recorded her parts and I did not do that. So I've learned my lesson, but I'm making up for it. So that's why, if you're wondering, where's Olivia? She's really quiet. She's not here right now. So we do have our new Patreon subscribers this week that I have to go over again. So we have Elizabeth, Cherie, and Alice. So thank you so much for joining. Love you guys. And you get to hear me crying as one of your first episodes. So welcome. Listener of the week, Olivia did record that. So Olivia will get into that and the background of this episode.
Yeah, so it's Christina. She said, long-time listener here. I've listened to every episode and love the journey. Steph always keeps it real and we love her for it. Olivia has a brilliant accent and we love hearing her travel escapades. It's clear how much work goes into this podcast and we are so appreciative. So very nice. Yeah, I feel like sometimes, I don't know, the world goes through periods of being mean online and I feel like this is one of those periods. Everyone seems to be really angry. So it's just nice to get some kind comments and kind feedback. So we really appreciate it. We are going to get into the episode now, the re-release, followed by the updates at the end. Don't forget that this episode was released in 2024 and we were reporting things as they were happening at that time. So in terms of dates and things mentioned in that episode, it was back in 2023, 2024 that we are referring to generally.
Hey everybody, I just wanted to share the song that came to my head the other day and see if it encourages you. I hope it does.
When she sang, she had such a way of you feeling close to God.
911, what's your emergency?
I just want my family to know where to find me.
Mica was 16 when she made church her life.
She loved the church. She loved the people.
Mica and John Paul met at Solid Rock.
They look like the ultimate couple. This is what I want my marriage to look like.
Mica was influenced by John Paul because he was 15 years older than her.
She just listened to his voice, a voice of a pastor, a voice of a mentor, and then a voice of a husband.
She showed me that John Paul's signature was tattooed on her side permanently, like ownership. It kind of spiraled from there.
I'll fight tooth and nail to get what I want. What I want is the only thing that matters. I don't care what you have to say.
I think that he used the Bible over her.
When your husband wants sex, God does not send an angel from heaven to take care of that.
He physically took her out of her car and took her to the hospital.
My voice is struggling. My hair's falling out. I'm gaining weight.
There's incredible danger in unmet needs.
She was speaking out about the abuse.
Sexual, physical, psychological abuse.
She needed a restraining order. Is it going to shut him down? Is it going to make him worse? Is it going to ramp it up?
Walk away. Do you want to go to jail?
Mica was being stalked 24/7. For her to drive an hour and a half into the middle of nowhere makes absolute zero sense.
I think justice for Mica at this point just looks like the truth.
The apparent suicide of Mica Miller, she died on April 27th in South Carolina. And a lot of people have questioned if her husband, Pastor John Paul Miller, may be involved in her death. So he is a pastor. He has a very annoying name. Like, his name is literally John Paul. John Paul.
We might get some hate from any listeners called John Paul.
There can't be that many, please. It might be less annoying if it wasn't like the circumstances, and that,
he's
that we
just
have to
an
say
annoying
it a billion times.
jerk anyway. Like, his name just makes him even more annoying.
Yeah, definitely smug asshole.
Like, it's crazy too that this case essentially hasn't even happened a month ago. Obviously we'll get into the lead up because things have been going on in the background for a long time, but it's weird that, like, crazy that it's been like 3 weeks and there's all this information already out about it.
Yeah.
This morning, an unexpected twist in the death of a South Carolina pastor's wife. The sheriff announcing the FBI and U.S. attorney are helping in the Mica Miller investigation. The 30-year-old calling 911 moments before she was found dead at a state park in North Carolina on April 27th, about an hour north of where she lived in Myrtle Beach. Her death had been ruled a suicide.
There's got to be some accountability here.
Mica's death coming just days after she told a police officer she was scared for her life, finding a GPS tracker on her car and a razor blade in her tire. She and her husband, John Paul Miller, were in the process of separating. He was a pastor at a local church. He has since been released from his duties, but previously spoke at a memorial service about his wife.
I've been down with the body about 4 times this week, and each time it still didn't hit me. I thought she was going to wake up, I even tried to raise her from the dead.
And now, new images released from authorities show Mica the day of her death, leaving her house, buying a gun, stopping at a gas station near the park, and then making that 911 call.
So there's tons of different sources for this episode. There's different, online sleuths that have been posting about it. So all of the sources and everything are going to be linked on our blog. So as we go through, we'll credit where things came from as much as we can. But if you want to read more or look up some things more, it'll all be on our blog at truecrimesocietyblog.com, all the links and all that.
I did the blog for this yesterday and I was quite proud of myself. Like, sometimes I do the blog and it's just basic. This is a good blog. There's social media links, there's tons on there.
You were productive last night.
I know. I was like, I'm going to just do this blog because I was on a roll with these notes. I'm like, I'm going to do the blog right now. So there is a lot of information on the blog. I absolutely recommend going to have a look if you want to do more of a deep dive into this case.
I literally went to bed thinking we were doing one episode, and then I woke up and we're doing this episode.
Yeah.
And Olivia just banged out 30 pages of research overnight.
Yeah. Because there are a lot of people who are invested in this case. So a lot of people have paid very close attention, which was very helpful for us. So, yeah, definitely look at the blog. All the sources are on there. And, yeah, you could spend hours and hours and hours looking at the stuff in this case.
Yeah. And every time I go to look, I find more stuff.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we're going to start with background into the people involved. Like I said, John Paul, that is her husband, ex-husband. They were in the middle of getting divorced.
Husband, yeah.
Yeah. So he has a documented criminal history. In February 2005, he was charged with domestic assault and battery and bodily harm. And in April 2013, John Paul was found guilty of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and knowingly causing property damage in excess of $300. So Mica, before she was married to John Paul, was married to someone else, and we think that she got married to her first husband in 2012.
I think, and his name was Jeremy Dees, which we'll speak about him too. But yeah, that she was married before John Paul.
And he was apparently John Paul's good friend.
Yeah.
And John Paul officiated their marriage. So it's a lot already.
Yeah.
In 2015, Mica and John Paul started having an affair. John Paul was also married when this was going on, so it was an affair from both ends. John Paul and his first wife had 5 children together by this time, and both spouses, so Mica's spouse and John Paul's spouse, filed for divorce when they found out about the affair. So in a 2017 affidavit, Allison, who was John Paul's first wife, she accused him of engaging in sex acts with minors younger than 16 and having an addiction to prostitutes. She also alleged that he was caught in an affair with Mica in 2015 while she was working as their babysitter and married to his then best friend, Jeremy Dees. So it's also mentioned, I can't remember if this is in the notes or not, I'm assuming it is. It's also mentioned Mica's family's now saying that John Paul basically groomed her from when she was like 16 years old,
or 16.
15 years
that
old.
That was the first time they met. And I guess he kind of kept her around babysitting and things like that.
Yeah, she was like a member of the church or like the same church, so they knew each other. It seems like he always kind of had her like on his radar and kind of sucked her in because she
14 years. He's 44 currently, and she was 30 when she passed away. So he was quite a bit older than
a pretty
her.
big age gap.
Yeah,
especially meeting when she was 16.
Young. So yeah, she would have been 16. He would have been 30-ish. Yeah, a big gap.
So Allison wrote in the affidavit, she wrote, "Our marriage and my husband's career were less than stable at the time because at the time my husband's affair was discovered, he had previously admitted to both me and our congregation that he had an addiction to prostitution." She also said, "He also confessed to me and other staff members of the church that he had sexual encounters with young females from the church who were under the age of 16. When the defendant's affair was discovered, the church leaders demanded that the defendant seek counseling for sexual addiction." And this is still Allison from the affidavit. "When he refused, the majority of our church left the congregation. Our separation was a result of my discovering that the defendant was having an affair with the praise and worship leader in our church, who was also the weekly babysitter of our 4 children and the wife of his best friend.
So that's my
Yeah. His marital misconduct not only destroyed my marriage, but also caused me to lose my church family and income, along with severely damaging the relationship between the defendant and our children." She went on to say, "I agreed to work with the defendant to reach an agreement on resolving the issues of our marriage and not seek an adultery divorce as an attempt to prevent him from further damage to his career as a church pastor." So a friend of Mica and Jeremy spoke to the media. The friend said he had a way of taking over someone else's mind. Mica and Jeremy would spend a lot of time at the Miller's home with Allie and JP. Sometimes John Paul is referred to JP in quotes, but it's John Paul, rehearsing music for the church. It seemed kind of suspicious that they would always be hanging out, always together. He always had them around. It was like JP did it underhandedly to subliminally get into her mind. Once everyone found out he lied to our faces, we confronted him, and he sat there and denied it to our faces, that he was just friends with Mica, and that was it. The source also said the majority of the church left the congregation after that, and we were shocked when we saw that him and Mica got engaged. They got married and destroyed a lot of people's lives. This is still the source talking.
Yeah, the next few paragraphs are all the source. Sorry, just to clarify.
So this is still all coming from the source. He had her wrapped around his little finger. She would jump even when she was married to Jeremy. He did it in such a sneaky way, and she was just a sweet person. He's a very good talker and good at getting people to do things for him. But I saw red flags. Jeremy and Mica had just bought a house, and it tore the whole thing apart. At first, Jeremy carried on going to church because he just loves God and wanted to support the cause, but eventually he did stop going. With Allie, it was like she disappeared. They were both so devastated. He was very, very controlling and vicious. So Allie is Allison that they're referring to. So Allison and John Paul initially signed a final divorce agreement, which ruled that John Paul would pay $1,200 in child support and $1,100 in alimony. John Paul told Allison that she and the children would have the means to live in the marital home until the youngest of their children turned 18. Before we get into the rest of the episode, we have a quick word from our sponsor, Nutrafol. Summer is the season of ponytails, messy buns, and braids. When it's hot outside, I need my hair off my neck. Also, having a crazy baby that just likes to rip my hair out, I need it away from my face and my neck out of his reach. I used to feel really self-conscious about how my hair looked up, but after using Nutrafol, I noticed a real difference in how I feel about my hair. Instead of worrying about it, I can pull it back and get on with my day knowing that it still looks healthy, full, and beautiful. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand, and it's the #1 hair growth supplement brand personally used by dermatologists.
Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are peer-reviewed, NSF certified for sport, and clinically tested. Let your hair be one less thing to worry about. See visibly thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code TCS. That's Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code TCS.
He only made one payment before saying that he could no longer afford the court-ordered amount. He said he'd fallen out of a tree and broken his legs while trying for reconciliation with Allison. So I don't know what that has to do with it, but okay.
It's so weird.
He ended up appearing in court in a wheelchair after that. The couple made an agreement to temporarily drop the child support payments to $900 a month, with John Paul arguing he shouldn't have to pay alimony because of an error on the divorce paperwork. After a 5-month legal battle launched in November 2016, John Paul eventually paid $3,300 in alimony in 2017. However, his ex-wife accused him of manipulating his income from the church, claiming it is hard to understand how he is suddenly making less now when every aspect of the ministry has improved. Which is also interesting because now, while all of this is going on, current day, the church is building like a new multi-million-dollar church as well. Allison also accused him of buying a boat, motorcycle, and golf cart, adding, "I do not understand how he can have these things but not afford to pay alimony." She said she had to borrow $15,000 from her father because her ex-husband had been failing to pay the agreed-to amounts. John Paul responded in the filing by saying that he gave her everything in the hope that they would reconcile, claiming he had no money and no place to stay. He added that his ex-wife allegedly screamed and cussed in front of his parishioners and harassed him when dropping off the children. John Paul also claimed her boyfriend threatened him several times. He rebutted claims that he was earning more than ever in 2017, saying, "The stress of finances is unbearable," claiming to have borrowed $20,000 from friends. That same year, John Paul wrote a letter to the church asking for forgiveness. According to multiple members of the church at the time, elders told them, "You're not a good Christian if you don't have forgiveness."
I just feel like this just gives you an idea of how messy this guy is. He's a jerk.
Yeah.
He's a messy jerk.
I was going to say, it might like seem irrelevant right now, like where you're like, why are you telling us so much about his previous marriage and divorce? But honestly, a lot of this episode has to do with John Paul being a manipulative, scumbag, insane person.
It just gives you more of an idea about the type of person he is and his character. Like imagine just abandoning your four or five children, however many children they had, and not wanting to pay any money for them. Like, he's not a nice
After
guy.
having an affair and apparently hooking up with underage girls. Because if you're not familiar with the story, what this kind of comes down to currently in the end is some people believe that he possibly murdered Mica, which personally I don't think it was something like that. But she did commit suicide, and I do think he is like heavily to blame for her committing suicide with the way that he was just like abusing her and what he was putting her through at that time in her life.
And also the parts that we've just spoken about the money, I feel like may end up being...
It seems like there's some money stuff
pertinent because, just as a bit of a spoiler, the FBI are now involved, which seems interesting for a suicide. So I wonder what else they are investigating. Anyway, we can talk about that as we get on with it. But just if you're wondering why we're giving you all this background...
Why this is relevant.
Yeah, it may be relevant.
Now we're back to Mica and John Paul. They got married in 2017, and they never had any children together. In 2021, it's believed that John Paul then began having an affair with a woman named Susie Skinner. Susie was married to, this also makes me think Murdoch's with all this random.
Yeah.
Susie was married to Chris Skinner at the time, and they were both members of John Paul's church. Chris was confined to a wheelchair following an accident that happened 20 years prior to 2021. And on September 6th, 2021, Chris died after falling from his wheelchair into a community pool. This is a post from an online sleuth named Robbie Harvey. If you go to his Twitter, he posts tons about this case. He's done tons of research, finds tons of things. So he's a good source if you want to look him up on Twitter.
He's got a great timeline, which we'll reference a few times in this episode, but I've posted his Twitter timeline on our blog. So I'm assuming it's a he has done a lot of research into this case.
Yeah, and like every time I look at his page, there's new stuff.
Yeah.
So, Harvey said, so this is his post, there's something disturbing about the pastor and Susie Skinner. Susie Skinner's ex-husband, Chris Skinner, died of drowning. Chris had a tragic accident about 20 years ago that left him confined to a wheelchair, but he has adapted and gone on to live a beautiful life. According to Susie, he often liked to go to the communal swimming pool alone. On Labor Day 2021, Chris did just that, but apparently something went wrong. According to reports, Chris got too close to the pool in his wheelchair and fell in with no one nearby to save him. So I think like the unsaid thing there is like he's been in a wheelchair going to the pool for 20 years. He knows what he's doing.
And then, like, I have so many questions. I don't want to go off on a tangent, but I have so many questions. So I'm assuming the pool maybe had one of the chairs that disabled people could use to get in. But even if he did fall in the wheelchair, if he could swim, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I have just all these questions. Like, I won't go into them, but I have a lot of questions.
Yeah. And then so another thing that Robbie Harvey took note of is that on the Solid Rock, so Solid Rock is the church, on the Solid Rock Instagram account, there's only one post announcing the death of a member, and it was for Chris Skinner. So it just seems kind of weird. I'm sure there's been plenty of people who belong to the church over the years that have passed away, but there's only one post, and it's for him.
And it's been brought up a lot now, obviously, because of the mysterious circumstances around Mica's death. This also seems like a really mysterious freak accident to happen. So people are questioning what actually happened.
Yeah, the husband of John Paul's mistress mysteriously dies in a freak accident. Just as a little excerpt from his obituary, goes into all the usual stuff. Then it says, you never forget the moment that you met Chris Skinner. Chris was a man who loved Jesus, loved his family, loved his friends, and loved life. After being paralyzed at age 20, he passionately pursued sharing his story of tragedy to triumph with everyone he met. Although he has spoken to over 1 million people, he believed his greatest purpose was to be a loving dad and husband. And then we thought it was interesting. It says, Chris is survived by his wife, Susan J. Skinner, and it goes on to the rest of the family. Did he know there was an affair while he was still alive, you think? I couldn't really tell from what I've read.
I don't know, but I feel like it was known unless it's come out since then, but I don't
It's definitely come out now.
Yeah.
From there, it's believed that Mica and John Paul's relationship had been rocky for years. Mica's family released texts dating back to as far as 2022 in which they allege abuse by John Paul. Mica's sister, Sierra Francis, wrote on TikTok. Mica's sister has been putting out a lot of information on TikTok and to the media. So she made a TikTok saying this. She said, the proof is in the abuse. Police reports were filed when JP threatened his life. We did a wellness check. That is when he got mad. Police stated when they arrived to perform a wellness check, he was loading Mica's belongings into his truck and stated that he was not suicidal. # justice for Mica. So then there's texts. And who is the text to?
So the bottom one, so there's two screenshots. One is someone holding a phone and it's the contact is Honey Baby. So those texts were to phone. Mica. But then the other texts, I believe, were maybe to Sierra
it
or
seems
some
like it might
other
be the
member
sister.
of the family. Yeah.
So this first one I'll read, it's from John Paul and maybe the sister or someone in the family. But John Paul messages whoever this is and says, I'm armed, I'm ready. And the other person says, armed? John Paul says, Mica can fix all of this. The other person says, this doesn't help anything. Threats and intimidation only make matters worse. John Paul, I don't care. Driving, can't text, thanks. Then the other person says, if you come here, the cops will be here waiting. If you stay home, they don't need to be involved. You can't make a threat about being armed and come to my house in the middle of the night. That's not safe for anyone involved. And John Paul said, fine by me. Okay.
And so those texts were from November 2022. So, 18 months or even longer before.
So it seemed like Mica was maybe at the sister's or whoever this person's
and maybe didn't want to
house.
speak to him, and so it's basically he was insinuating that he had a gun and he was going to go to the family member's house.
So then these messages are from Mica's phone. So this is him messaging Mica, and it's all different texts, like as if it's like instant messenger. And he wrote, "My blood is on you, and my kids will know. I couldn't take it without you. All you and it's all written very like
it's kind of manic.
I don't know the word.
It's not coherent. It's like a bunch of random words in lines. Like it's not like a normal sentence.
It's almost as if it's written like a poem because it's like all you had to do almost. Was enter, come home, enter to me. So it's like a lot of different lines.
Yeah.
But anyways, so he said all you had to do was come home to me, but you wouldn't do it. I'm done. All you had to do was love me enough to drive home to me. But you don't even care that much about me. I love you. I'm sorry. Tell Sierra I'm sorry." And then it cuts off. But it just seems like a flurry of manic messages. And then there's other texts that said, "If you come home today, we can take off the rest of the year and go to counseling every day, go to Iceland, do whatever in order to get well. I also desperately want a child with you. I'm just scared of this. This is the only reason I wouldn't. I'm scared of divorce or putting the child through things like this where you leave and aren't willing to do whatever it takes." So gaslighting her because she left and she's not willing to do whatever it takes when really she left because of his abuse. This is another message from him. "All this started because of one bad decision a month ago in Colombia. If I could go back in time, I would. We had the greatest marriage in the world up until that one wrong choice." I'm guessing affair was the choice.
Sounds like it.
Another message from him says, "It can continue down that path, or we can have an amazing marriage once again. The choice is yours. Love you." Like, what a dick. Like, you're abusive. You clearly were having an affair, and now you're, like, making it seem like it's her problem, and she's the one being uncooperative and ending things. And you're like, please, our marriage can be amazing again. It's like, no, you're the one who fucked up and continues to fuck up and is an asshole. So this brings us to October 2023. Mica filed for divorce from John Paul. The following timeline is from Robbie Harvey, who we mentioned before, and there's links to this on our blog, or you can go to his Twitter. So he has February 4th, 2024, Pastor John Paul preaches a sermon on Korah and Moses and how it's wrong to rise against religious leaders. On February 8th, according to Mica, she's involuntarily hospitalized in a mental facility. And just outside of the timeline, it seems like this was true because there was a fundraiser that confirms that she had been hospitalized. It said gifting, this is from the GoFundMe, it says gifting Mica some birthday love. Hi all. As you may know, our sister Mica has recently been in the hospital. She had a lot of ups and downs this month, but that hasn't stopped her spirits. She just turned 30, but due to so many life events happening, she was unable to be celebrated in the way our family had planned. I really wanted to rally her community together to remind her how important she is to each and every one of us. I know that there are so many of y'all that love her and support her like we do. If you want to send her some birthday love, our whole family would be so grateful. All gifts are anonymous.
The fundraiser raised $165. So
I wasn't going to say it because I felt like I felt bad.
Yeah, I know. I when I was reading it, like when I saw that there was a fundraiser, I was interested to see, but it didn't raise very much.
So back to the timeline, February 8th, according to affidavits from Mica's family, John Paul takes this opportunity to go through Mica's electronic devices and delete evidence. On the 10th of February, Mica accuses John Paul of stealing her car while admitted in the hospital. So from here, Mica's divorce filing was withdrawn on February 12th, 2024, but later that same month, on February 23rd, her husband filed against her for separate support and maintenance.
I don't know. It's weird because they don't have any children, so I don't know why he's filing for support, but I don't know. It's back and forth for spousal support, it seems.
Also on February 23rd, John Paul left his number for a waitress that he had met. There's an explicit adult conversation that happens between the two of them, and John Paul asked the woman for sexual photos. So I just can't.
Yeah.
Robbie Harvey also summarized some of the sermons given by John Paul during this time. And I mean, he just has that typical,
He's just
like
self-righteous.
scumbag,
Yeah.
scammer, pastor. I say that with quotes because I know like not all pastors are scumbags, but the ones that are scumbags, like he just fits the bill perfectly for those like wannabe cult leaders that just love themselves and love everybody listening to them. I'll put in clips like here and there of him talking about things sometimes. So you'll see this.
Let me modernize it for us. If I can preach a really great sermon, but I don't love people, it does me no good. If I can play the most beautiful song, write the coolest parody, teach the best Sunday school lesson, if I can walk around this building and pray for people and mountains move in their life, but I'm not doing it because I love people, it does me no good at all. And we get so caught up on is the doctrine right? Is this right? What he said about this and that? And what is this? And we get all into gossip and looking at things on social media and what do they get into? And we forget it's all about loving people.
So on February 25th, in one of his sermons to his congregation, John Paul says, "A mentally ill person doesn't know they're sick. And this is a quote, you have to trust people around you. The thing that's sick is your mind, and your mind is what you need to realize that you're sick."
So profound.
Yeah, groundbreaking. Hello. March 10th, he preaches a sermon and reveals he went through 2 years of messages on his wife's phone, so on Mica's phone. He found that 18 people reached out to her saying, quote, "If you ever want to talk about your husband, you can talk to me and I'll keep it confidential." Visibly upset, John Paul followed up with, "That's a demon talking."
This is the worst sermon I've ever preached my whole life. I can't stand it. I just want to give the altar call and quit now. One day, listen, if you ever want to know what I'm going through in life, it's always about what I'm preaching about. God is so good to do that every single time. One day I'm going to preach about getting rich, strong, healthy, and finding a hot wife that loves Jesus. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just kidding. My wife went in the hospital. I looked at her phone and I counted over the past 2 years, 18 people who had texted her and said, "If you ever want to talk about your husband, you can talk to me and say anything and I'll keep it confidential." Why the heck does somebody want to hear what somebody else says about their spouse? And 2 of those 18 were men. I thought, what? And I was thinking when I read that, I thought, Mark Castaday, he's one of our elders here, and Jackie, she oversees our New Testament discipleship. Could you see Mark calling another woman and saying, "You know what, I just want to tell you some things about my wife I don't like"? Or could you see Jackie calling a woman or a man, either one? No, if someone wants to call you and say bad things about somebody else, that's a demon talking to you. And the only way to respond is with the word of God. Because see, demons love words that line up with what they want. They cannot stand the word of God. So if anyone calls you and says, "Listen, I need to tell you about what my husband's doing, my wife," you say, "Listen, here's what the Bible says you need to do with that," because that's a demon. So there you go. Okay, I feel much better already.
It just shows that like he was willing to just like publicly humiliate her and put all this stuff out there on blast in his own context, like out of context of what's actually going on. And like, imagine your pastor telling you this.
Yeah. And
I'd be like,
also, Mica was aware of this, and Sierra has also posted a lot on Facebook about kind of what John Paul was doing as it was happening. So like it's all being documented. Like it hasn't come out after Mica's death is what I mean. They were all documenting it as it was happening in March.
Yeah.
Especially March seems to be when things really ramped up.
Yeah. And Mica was like a pretty active member of this church as well. She worked there to some extent at some point. There's videos of her singing at the church. So it's not like she wasn't also involved in this church that he's trying to publicly shame her in front of. In any clips I've seen, shockingly to me in hindsight, there's a lot of people there listening. Yeah. It's a packed house. Again, March 10th, Pastor John Paul tells his congregation that his wife was in the hospital, and as soon as she got out, she left him. The quote is, "She gets out and she just leaves, just completely leaves me, leaves everything, drains the bank account, and just goes. Guess what? While you're talking bad about me out there, I'm building a school in Africa for over 100 kids to be able to be fed." Also, March 10th, this must all be the same sermon, just like ripping on her. Pastor John Paul says to his congregation, One thing I'm going to preach about is getting rich, strong, healthy, and finding a hot wife that loves Jesus while he's wearing his wedding ring.
So disgusting. Like, I just can't believe that this man was in a position of authority where people looked up to him and he's acting like this. It's not great.
Yeah, and like I said, there's a lot of people there. Like,
yeah.
But I guess as this was going on, more people were starting to be like,
what's going on here? Yeah.
On March 11th, Mica filed a police report that said her tire was slashed. The possible suspect's name was redacted from the report. Mechanics at East Coast Honda on Highway 17 bypass found a tracking device while repairing the tire. Mica would end up reporting 4 separate instances where tracking devices were found on her vehicle. So that's unhinged.
Yeah.
And it's like he's tracking her obsessively. Meanwhile, he's the one who's like compulsively having affairs. On March 12th, and this is all within days. The first book was the 10th, this is the 11th, now it's the 12th. John Paul's request for spousal support was dismissed, and there's no explanation as to why. March 17th, John Paul told a story of a pastor whose wife left him for a member of his staff. The pastor had to hire a third-party company to find her. Once he found her, divorce papers were drawn up. When the time came to sign the papers, the pastor couldn't do it because, quote, Bible says divorce is wrong. And if she wanted out, she would have to leave him. On March 17th, Sierra, who is Mica's sister, made a Facebook post, and that post says, as I was sitting in church today, I received a text message. Usually I don't check my phone, and I keep it on silent. Both everything going on with my sister Mica, I've made it a point to try to keep an eye on it for fear of her safety due to others' behavior towards her. To no surprise, it was a message about what was said from the pulpit today in Myrtle Beach at her church. I have so much sadness that someone could take the position that was hopefully given to them by God and use it for their own benefit, abusing God's gift of free will. Please hear my heart when I say, if you attend that church, guard your heart and get in the Bible. The church is the people and God, not the pastor. When the pastor is married and he's on stage giving a sermon saying he's going to pray to God for a hot wife, that should raise a million red flags. When a pastor is on stage in a sermon saying he's going to wave to all of his Facebook haters on his private plane on the way to Miami, that should raise a red flag. When the pastor's up there saying that he's angry at God for always making his sermons about what he's going through in his life, you should take that as a red flag. When the pastor's saying he shouldn't be up there preaching to you, you should hear what he's saying and take it seriously. I can only imagine how emotionally straining it is for Mica having somebody in a position of influence spreading lies about her to the entire congregation, and I commend my sister for standing tall and standing on God's word. So, just more proof that, like, he's ridiculous. Just so ridiculous. And
everyone was aware of what he was doing.
Waving. It reminds me almost of the Love Has One guy who just like to be like, I'm so rich, like, here I am, I'm God. Not Love Is One. Twin Flames.
Oh, Twin Flames, yeah.
That guy. Get the cults confused sometimes. On March 18th, Mica posted a video encouraging others. She says, I'm just making sure my heart doesn't have any unforgiveness, bitterness, resentment, just forgiveness and hope for the future. And then on March 22nd, she posted another emotional video in which she spoke of abuse within marriage and offered support to anyone struggling with leaving a dangerous situation because they think God will be mad at them. She said, I'll put in a clip, but she said, today my heart's a little heavy. I've had lots of women that have reached out to me about situations of abuse, and I just want to tell you what a lot of people have told me lately because I think I forgot.
So today my heart's a little heavy. I've had a lot of women that have reached out to me about situations of abuse, and I just want to tell you what a lot of people have told me lately and reminded me because I think I forgot. I knew, but I pushed it in the back of my head just because of my situation. But you are the bride of Christ. Before anybody else's bride, male or female, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what gender you are. Abuse is abuse. And you are the bride of Christ. And my Bible says that he took all the abuse you could think of for you so that you didn't have to live that life of slavery and bondage and pain. Jesus took it all for you. So you don't have to stay in a abusive relationship, whether that's sexual, whether that's somebody forcing you to take illegal drugs, or alcohol abuse, or physical abuse, psychological abuse, making you think that this is all your fault, or you're a bad mom, or you're a bad wife, or you're a bad husband, or you're not giving it your all when you know you are. God hates divorce, but why? According to everybody I've asked and the scriptures that I've found, it's because it hurts people. But does abuse hurt people? How do you think God feels about that? So, I want to remind you, like a bunch of people have been reminding me lately, that I'm God's bride first. And even an earthly spouse who's a good spouse, when they know that their bride is being hurt, just imagine what an earthly spouse does. What do you think your heavenly spouse does when you're the bride of Christ and he sees his bride going through abuse and hurt? What do you think he thinks about that? So, encouragement in all this is you are the bride of Christ first before anybody else's. And he's got you. And he sees you. And he loves you.
One thing that really frustrates me with religion is that people like John Paul and abusers use it to manipulate people who are actually religious and follow religion. I'm sure that he is saying to her behind the scenes, like, divorce is bad, that's a sin, like using that against people who are actual followers, like guilting them out basically, and using religion as a way to manipulate people.
So as we mentioned, we really love the IQ mixes. I'm actually drinking one at the moment. It's a 0 sugar drink mix that hydrates with electrolytes and improves your mood with magnesium, and it boosts clarity with lion's mane adaptogen. If you're into coffee, IQ Joe is a jitter-free instant coffee packed with 200 milligrams of natural caffeine, brain-boosting magnesium, and productivity-enhancing lion's mane. IQ Joe comes with 4 delicious flavors. They're original black, vanilla spice, cafe mocha, and toasted hazelnut, and they taste way better than any brewed coffee. And you guys know how much we love the bars. I actually tell everyone about these bars. They are so delicious. Like sometimes I let them go a little bit melty. It's kind of like having a brownie, especially with the chocolate sea salt. They are delicious.
Refill smarter with IQ Bar's Ultimate Sampler Pack. That's 7 IQ bars, 4 IQ Mix sticks, and 4 IQ Joe sticks. And now our special podcast listeners get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus get free shipping. To get your 20% off, just text CRIME to 64,000. Get your discount, text CRIME to 64,000. That's CRIME, CRIME to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details. So on March 27th, John Paul filed a police report alleging that he was being harassed on social media by his wife. He tells police that he's worried about his reputation. At some point in early mid-April, John Paul sent Mica an apology for posting a topless photo of her online. So he wrote to her, "I'm sorry for putting a picture of you on the internet. It was for less than 1 hour and immediately taken down. I was hurt that you were telling everyone horrible, intimate details of my past sin, and I just wanted to try and hurt you. Please forgive me. It was evil of me to do that." So apparently he posted a topless photo of her on Facebook. Like, how horrible. Mica made another police report on April 15th regarding the 4th tracking device that she found on her car. She told police that she'd found a heavy-duty tracker placed on her vehicle by John Paul and wanted to turn it over as evidence. The report noted that it was not the first such complaint police had taken from Mica. The report also said an officer told Mica that it was a civil matter and that she could keep the device because the two were still legally married. Like, oh, thanks. On April 16th, Mica filed for spousal support. A hearing notice was sent out for the request on April 23rd, with a date of June 5th being set. Around this time, Mica sent an affidavit to her attorney, and it reads in part, "Since the day we became husband and wife, I've been abused in every way I can think of, emotionally, sexually, spiritually, financially, and physically. He's harassed me physically and electronically with letters, phone calls, emails, and texts, hacking my emails, hacking my personal Facebook, and impersonating me, using my stolen phone to send texts and emails out to church members pretending to be me, texting friends and family saying that I'm sleeping with teenagers from our church, and showing up in person at places around town, to having installed 3 different tracking devices on my vehicle. Which, like, I can't even imagine. It sounds so exhausting. Like, he's pretending to be her, sending messages to people pretending to be her. It's just insane.
And it wasn't just like a one-off thing. Like, as
It's
we've mentioned, this
constant.
is happening like every day. There's stuff going on. It would have been, like you said, exhausting.
I don't know how he had time to do anything else, because it seems like he was just constantly harassing her and figuring out new ways to harass her.
So the day that Mica died is Saturday, April 27th, and this timeline of events is from the Robeson County Sheriff's Office. At 11 o'clock, Mica was observed on her Ring camera arriving at her residence on Margarita Drive in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. So they have released a lot of CCTV images just to kind of back up this timeline. At 11:38, Mica was observed on her Ring camera leaving the residence. At 12:12, she was observed on CCTV in a store walking into Dick's Pawn Shop, which is located in Myrtle Beach. 1 minute later, she's observed at the register and she initiates the purchase of a gun. At 12:34, so it took like 20 minutes, she left the pawn shop after purchasing the gun and ammunition, which I know that this has raised a lot of questions too about how you can walk into a store and buy a gun and be done in 20 minutes and leaving, like, you know, about waiting periods for gun purchases and things like that. Because it is interesting that she literally made the decision, could walk in and get a gun in 20 minutes and be gone.
Yeah.
At 1:06, her black Honda was observed traveling on Highway 501 in South Carolina. At 1:27, her Honda was at a grocery store. She left the grocery store at 1:35 after purchasing a drink and gas. And this is part of the reason too why people were questioning if this was a suicide. Like, why would you get gas for your car and why would you buy a drink if you were just going to go and kill yourself in the next...
I've literally said that about Alan White, who we don't know really what happened to him, but it was heavily speculated he committed suicide.
Yeah.
And he got gas before going to the destination to kill himself. And I'm like, why would he get gas?
So at 2:54, Mica called 911 from the Lumber River State Park. So the Lumber River State Park is 32 miles or around 41 minutes from the grocery store. So do you think we'll play the 911 call?
Yeah, I saved it.
Yeah,
Wait,
so we'll play
it. Here?
Yeah, put it in. We'll put the 911 call in here. Basically, Mica calls and asks the dispatcher if they can trace her location, and the dispatcher kind of tries. And anyway, she then tells the dispatcher that she's going to take her own life and she wants her family to be able to find the body.
If you're worried about hearing the 911 call, it's really not emotional or sad or anything like that. So it shouldn't be overly upsetting for you to hear, but if you feel like it will be, obviously, like, fast forward a couple minutes. There's a lot of silences in between them talking, so I'll cut those out just to condense it. But she's very calm. There's not a lot of details. It's pretty straightforward.
Robeson County 911, what's the address of your emergency?
Hi, are you able to trace the location of my phone?
Let me see. You don't know where you're at?
A national park.
What's the phone number you're calling me from? Where's the park located at?
In Bear Bluff. I have my location on, I think, on my phone. Find my phone is on. I just did my my location.
Okay, I'm showing, hold on one second. I don't think you are in Robeson County. Are you at the Lumber River State Park?
Yeah, that's where I am.
Okay. Tell me what's, happened.
I'm about to kill myself, and I just want my family to know where to find me.
Okay, ma'am. Just listen to what I'm saying, okay? Let me make sure I got the exact location where you're at, okay? Just 1 minute.
Yeah, she seems very, yeah, like you said,
Like
calm,
she's set.
resigned. Like, and I found it interesting too because the dispatcher doesn't ask why. Like, I feel like the dispatcher thought she might be lost because that's why she's like, "Can you trace my location?"
Yeah, first.
Yeah. So yeah, you don't hear much. I did find it interesting to listen to.
And it just ends.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's where it actually ends or that's just all that was released or if that's when Mica hung up.
That there is a gunshot maybe heard, but you don't hear that in the versions that I've heard anyway.
Yeah. So I did I guess this more is like discussion, but just I'll forget by then. I do think it's interesting how calm she is cuz there's a lot of speculation even though it's eventually said that John Paul wasn't like in the area at the time. Like people are still thinking he's somehow involved and maybe this was a murder. I do feel like if it was a murder, she wouldn't have sounded so calm and confident and like set on what she was going to do.
I agree. All right. So at that point, that is when Mica took her life. I thought this would be a good point just to discuss some of the points in her obituary that was released. So it says that Mica Miller of Myrtle Beach passed away Saturday, April 27th. She's survived by her husband, Pastor John Miller of Myrtle Beach. Then it goes to list all his children. So it's her stepchildren and then the rest of
it's
her
like
family.
Clearly he wrote this.
Yeah, absolutely. It says, Mica was energetic, affirming, adventurous, faithful, loving, giving, forgiving, talented, joyous, creative, assertive, bold, determined, authoritative, passionate, hardworking, a risk taker, and so much more. She and JP have been friends since 2009, so that also goes back to them knowing each other since she was very young. Married in 2017 and spent almost every single day and night together. Mica loved her little dog. She loved doing outdoor activities like waterfall rappelling, hiking, skydiving, running, and going to the beach. Mica would take on any challenge, even if it was being vegan for an entire year. She was a great stepmother and an amazing wife and helpmate. She helped Pastor JP with the church in every way. Mica was the worship leader, graphics designer, youth leader, women's ministry leader, and pastor's assistant. And she did all of this with the utmost integrity and faithfulness. Mica made the greatest of efforts to always be the best wife she could be. She truly served Jesus and her husband with all of her heart. This is just ridiculous. 100% he wrote this. She would praise her husband after every church service, telling him he was the best preacher in the world, even if it wasn't true. She also told him he was the funniest preacher in the world, even though it wasn't true either. So this is all
that
about
part made me
him
be
now.
like, is this real?
Yeah.
Like...
So then it goes on. Mica loved her family so much. She looked forward to every text from her father or brother. She sought every opportunity to pour into her sisters. There were thousands of nights that she would pray out loud to God to always bless and take care of her family. They were constantly on her mind. Mica wanted more than anything for each member of her family to serve Jesus continually. She loved her ice bath, nice car, sauna house, etc. But more than anything on earth, her desire was to see people come to Jesus.
This is like screaming overcompensating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like John Paul's overcompensating for whatever, for everything, for the abuse that's coming out, just everything.
I feel horrible for her family that he was the one to write the obituary because I guess essentially he is still her next of kin, but they knew, like, Sierra knew, they knew what was going on, and then to have this would just be a slap in the face.
I wonder, like, it must be such a legal, like, clusterfuck when someone dies while they're in the midst of getting divorced or something. Yeah. But yeah, if I was her family, I'd be infuriated. And especially like he held his own memorial and funeral and stuff that we'll get to. I would be, oh my God, I would maybe commit a crime.
So John Paul announced Mica's death to his congregation the day after she died, which was April 28. There's lots of video of it online. He told the crowd that Mica's death was, quote, self-induced. He said, you all know she wasn't well mentally and that she needed her medicine and it was hard to get to her. Prior to making the announcement, though, he asked the congregation to stand and instructed them to, quote, leave church quietly and don't talk about the announcement here in the building.
We're not going to do an altar call today. Instead, I'm going to have you stand up and I'm going to make an announcement. And after the announcement, I'm going to ask that you leave church quietly and don't talk about the announcement here in the building, please, if you can. So y'all can stand to your feet. Before I make the announcement, I also want to say that my request to you is that you will continue to come to church and serve and give for the next, little bit, because I don't want to have. I'm taking a little bit of a break, and I don't want to have to worry about the church. My break may be a few days, a few weeks. I don't know. I got a call late last night. My wife has passed away, and it was self-induced, and it was up in North Carolina, and we're gonna have a funeral for her next Sunday here at 3 p.m. And so it's all I can. Yeah, I'm just kind of going on adrenaline right now. So y'all pray for me and my kids and everybody. And she wasn't. Y'all knew that she wasn't well mentally, and that she needed her medicine that was hard to get to her. And so I'm sure there'll be more details to come. But just keep our family in your prayers. And I'm going to let Pastor Randall, Bishop, he can pray. I'll give him a microphone. He'll pray out. And if you have anything you want to share as well, I appreciate it.
Come on, let's pray.
So that was how he told the congregation about Mica's death. On April 30, John Paul apparently attempted to get into Mica's apartment. He was stopped by the building manager and police were called.
What was he looking for?
Yeah, I wonder what he was trying to get.
That's what a lot of people are saying. They're like, why? What was he trying to get? What was he looking for?
On May 2nd, Mica's siblings filed affidavits in regards to her estate. I'll just read part of it, but basically, as we mentioned, I'm assuming John Paul was the next of kin, so therefore he's probably entitled to her estate, but they outline in this essentially why he shouldn't be. It says, Mica talked about what she wanted her life to be following her divorce. Having travelled for a church mission this past fall, Mica was intending to participate in additional ministries and to even live part-time in Kenya. She recently shipped some of her belongings to Kenya in preparation of her stay there. It says, my sister was hopeful for her future after filing for divorce from John Paul. My sister also expressed to me that she was fearful she would not make it to the divorce and that her life would be taken from her. It is my belief, based on conversations with my sister, that she told multiple people, including other family members. She stated to me on many occasions, if I end up with a bullet in my head, it was not by me, it was JP. Mica forwarded a group family text message notifying us that Mr. Miller was served the divorce papers on April 25, 2024. So that's 2 days before she died. On April 27th, my sister Mica was found dead as a result of a gunshot wound. I fully have the full support of my family to request to be appointed a special administrator. I take this request and my potential appointment in this role very seriously. So her family did act quickly, which is good, after her death.
It's sad that he was like such a piece of trash that's like her family was almost prepared for this. Like they'd already been saving all of this stuff, saving all the abuse information, and like they were ready to try to protect her.
So after Mica died, John Paul has been giving a lot of interviews. He spoke to ABC 15 on May 2nd and said she was probably the greatest wife anyone could ask for. He did also speak then about her mental illness. He spoke to the Christian Post on May 4. This is a quote from the article. It says, Pastor Miller explained that his late wife was diagnosed with bipolar, schizophrenic, and dependent personality disorder in 2017, and he had been trying to manage it with lithium and significant support since then.
What did they mean he'd been trying to manage it? Like,
yeah. It's just like it's a control thing, it seems.
It's so weird.
He said that as long as she took her medication, his wife would be fine. However, she had a roller coaster relationship with her treatment. He alleged that she would complain how the medication would make her gain weight or cause her to slur. And earlier this year, the wife of a pastor friend who had no understanding of mental illness offered to pray and believe that Mica's mental illness would go away. That incident stuck with Mica, and she believed that she no longer needed medication. He said, I took care of her through every time she went to the mental institute. I took care of her every time she stopped taking lithium. I would never expose this stuff about her if I didn't have to now, but every time she tried to kill herself, I would be there. I would literally sometimes pick her up, physically put her in the truck and take her to hospital. He said that he took Mica to probate court a few weeks ago to get her hospitalised, but the court stated that she wasn't a danger to others, so she couldn't be forced. He said, nobody believed me when I told them that she was having a psychotic break. She would have never left. She would never have done what she did. They wouldn't believe me. I have 48 text messages that I sent out saying she needs her lithium. Somebody help me, please. And nobody believed me.
It's so disgusting to me that he's putting out all of this information about her, trying to like humiliate her essentially, while also trying to make himself look like this amazing savior of a husband.
Yeah.
And just like, I couldn't imagine doing that to someone I claim to love.
Me either. It's just wild that he's out there basically.
And he has no
airing
reason to
her
really be saying this.
Dirt. Like he could have just, if he did want to, he could say like, I really tried to help her. That would be enough. You don't need to. He's just a jerk.
And he really had no reason to be saying this. Like, I don't know why he's like, I have to say this. Like, sure, at this point,
Why is he giving interviews anyway? Like, it's
right. Like they're just average people. He's not a celebrity.
Yeah, he thinks he is.
Definitely.
So, despite him carrying on about how mentally unwell Michael was, there's never been any mention by John Paul of his own struggles. So, a friend of his has come out and posted a video online indicating that he has also struggled with his mental health. The video shows John Paul experiencing what some say could be a drug-induced psychosis. He explains in the video that his medication was changed and he felt like ants were crawling all over him, even though there were no ants on him. In the video, he's laying on a lawn next to a truck with an open door and he's mumbling incoherently. Neighbours offer him water and try to comfort him. When he's asked if he wants his mother to come and help, he says, I don't want my mum because she's trying to get me on medication. This is what it does. I can't eat, I can't sleep, I can't do nothing.
JP. You all right, man? You okay? Huh? You okay? What's the matter? Huh? What's the matter?
I switched my medication. Makes me go crazy.
Is somebody helping you?
Thinks that the Mark's coming to get me.
Oh, okay.
I thought I was going to see Jesus.
Okay. But you got Mark coming?
Somebody called him, I think.
Okay.
I feel like he invited me. I can't
So,
see Jesus. Because the ants bite me everywhere.
is your medication something they gave you?
Yes, I'm a drug.
Yeah.
The friend who posted the video has written a post about it. I'll just read out some of it because it is quite long. It says, I believe the saying goes, getting a taste of your own medicine, and I mean that quite literally. You have used and abused for way too long, only to get up on the pulpit and consistently discredit your victims by airing out intentional, degrading, inappropriate personal information. So that's what we were speaking about before. That's exactly what he was doing. Doing that allows you to control the narrative. Now we have the death of the wife that you claim only took her life because of mental illness. Fact is, nobody was ever mental until they met you. You are the common denominator in all of this. This video is only proof that you yourself have issues and you know what medication can do to someone. Imagine being in a vulnerable state like this and being met with control, manipulation, and shame. What's the long-term effect of that? Now add abuse on top of that, all forms that may apply. Who can handle that? Yet you were met with a soft tone and a water bottle that you didn't deserve. JP, I could have done this anonymously, but I want you to see it's coming from me so you don't go after anyone else. You know I've got receipts and you know I'm not scared. I've never met anyone like you, but what I've learned and been taught is people like you repeat their behavior and every so often they slip up and show who they really are. Sometimes they even type it in an email. I think it's abundantly clear that you haven't been held accountable for your actions over the years, and I never hit the recycling bin. He goes on to say, the reason why most people didn't speak up the first time is because they know your reaction is ruthless. You have a little bit of local power with enough financial resources to hurt people legally, and they fear putting their family at risk. And the few others that don't speak up because it's not the Christian thing to do, well, neither is doing nothing. He says, I also believe Jesus flipped over some tables, so here we go. So good on him for standing up to John Paul.
Yeah, I thought this was really telling because this guy used to be his friend. So it's not just like biased where it's like just her family who thinks this. Like there's other people who think he's disgusting.
Yeah. So on May 4, just a few days after Mica died, there were photos of John Paul and Susie Skinner that were made public. He had apparently been seen with her multiple times since Mica's death. They look like they're at like a cafe or a restaurant or something. They're sitting there laughing. You know, he doesn't look sad or yeah. On May 5, John Paul was temporarily dismissed of his duties at the Solid Rock Church. An email was sent out and it said, I, Charles Randall, by the authority vested in me as an overseer, hereby release Pastor John Paul Miller from all ministerial functions for a time of healing, counsel, and guidance pursuant to our governing instrument. So that's what the congregation was told. Also on this day, Mica's funeral was held. In a video from the service, John Paul said, I'm assuming it was he went to the funeral, did he? Is this where he said it, or was it another memorial?
I think the memorial funeral is the same. He had one, and then the family had a separate one because they didn't want to go to his. I think memorial funeral, the same thing for this.
So John Paul spoke a lot. I believe it's like a 35-minute long kind of rant he goes on. And he basically talks about how he attempted to raise Mica from the dead. I'll just read out part of it. He says, as Christians, of course, we know she's not here. She's in heaven worshiping and enjoying and probably haven't had time to look down here yet. You all know she wasn't well mentally and that she needed her medicine and it was hard to get to her. But I've been down to the body, as in her body, about 4 times this week, and each time it still didn't hit me that she was gone. I thought she was going to wake up. I even tried to raise her from the dead one time this week.
I'm just, everyone knew how beautiful she was on the outside, but only I think a spouse knows how beautiful that person is on the inside. So I want to take a few minutes to just kind of tell some stories and just share some things about Mica that may, I don't know, shock you or help you get to know the more intimate side of her. She was beautiful on the outside. She had won so many beauty pageants, all when she was young, and I have one of her trophies here where she won Saucus the Idol. Let me tell you, just to talk about how pretty she was on the outside. When she went to one school, she won the Miss whatever the school was beauty pageant, and then her family moved and she went to another school and she won the Miss Beauty pageant for that school too. So it was the first time in that county's history that someone won, both the pageants. But it really hadn't hit me. I've gotten to spend as Christians, of course, we know she's not here and in heaven, and she's worshiping and enjoying, and I hadn't even had time to look down here yet. But I got this lay next to her body and spent time with her body about 4 times this week, and each time it still didn't hit me. I thought she was going to wake up. I even tried to raise her from the dead one time this week, and that morning actually I went to the mall later. She had bought me this dog tag, and the chain broke, so I went to the mall to get it fixed. And I saw a female about 20, 30 feet in front of me, and she was wearing one of Mica's dresses. And she had the same tattoo Mica has on her arm and the exact same hair. And out of just instinct, I screamed, "Mica!" And the girl turned around, and it was one of her sisters. And I thought I raised her from the dead. She's alive, But I can't wait to see her again one day.
So this is what it's all about him again.
And even though obviously it's insane to be like, I try to raise someone from the dead, and that's not going to happen. I bet you he didn't even actually try, though. Like, he's just saying that to be like, I tried to raise her from the dead because I just love her so much. Like, he definitely didn't even try.
According to a source, John Paul attended a bar after the memorial and he showed no remorse for his wife's death. He was just out there drinking, having a good time. So up until this point, there was a lot of questions about Mica's actual death. People were questioning if John Paul could have actually pulled the trigger, if he was involved, But on May 6th, the North Carolina medical examiner ruled that her death was suicide by gunshot. The Robeson County Sheriff made a great post where they outlined basically their entire investigation and how they had come to determine it was a suicide. They start with that at 2:54, Mica called 911. She asked if her phone could be located because she was going to kill herself, and I wanted her family to be able to find her body. During the conversation with the dispatcher, the caller hung up the phone and the dispatcher was unable to contact her. They found the location of where she was calling, though, and dispatched a deputy to the location. So when they got there, they conducted a search of the area. They found her car and they confirmed it was Mica's car. They also located a gun case in the passenger seat of a vehicle as well as a box of ammunition in the center console. They found the receipt for the gun that we mentioned that she purchased earlier that day. During a search of the park, when they were trying to find the person who called 911, investigators were approached by an individual who had found a bag near the water's edge and that bag had ID in it belonging to Mica. The individual stated that he heard someone crying and a gunshot while he was fishing. law enforcement continued to search and they found a body in the water. That body was identified as Mica. They also found the 9mm handgun in the water. The serial number matched the one on the gun box that was found in her car. They found her phone and other personal belongings. They also found that she had conducted a Google search for national parks near me, and the Lumber River State Park location was provided. So then it goes into, in their investigation, they determined that Mica and John Paul were estranged and had been separated. They also looked into John Paul's whereabouts, and they say the whereabouts of Miller and a female that he's allegedly romantically involved with, they were able to confirm that both individuals were not in North Carolina on the night before and the day of Mica's death. So basically, he was with Susie Skinner somewhere else. He wasn't anywhere near where Mica was. They said that John Paul was at an athletic event in Charleston on the day of the death. His vehicle was observed traveling at 2:22 p.m. and that him and his companion were traveling to the event in Charleston. So basically, there was no way he could have been there at the time. They go on to say, too, on Tuesday, May 7th, Sheriff Bernice Wilkins, investigators and the medical examiner met with the parents and immediate families of Mica. John Paul was given the opportunity to attend a separate meeting, and Miller indicated through his attorney that he would not come to meet with them. So just an interesting, side note that he didn't want to meet with investigators about the death.
This was the point when this information came out where I was like, I guess, like, maybe we shouldn't do an episode on it
It's
because,
just a
like,
suicide,
clearly she
yeah.
committed suicide. Like, it's pretty clear that she committed suicide.
So on May 10, John Paul's attorney released a statement. It's long. It's all on the blog if you want to read it all. I'll just read part of it, though. It says, following the untimely death of Mica Miller, unfounded rumors and false accusations began circulating on social media and in various media outlets, suggesting Pastor Miller's involvement in her demise. This created a buzz, causing local and national media outlets to begin proliferating these falsehoods on a mammoth proportion. Our client refutes any report that suggests he ever abused his wife. Recent reports claim that Pastor Miller groomed his wife from the age of 10 years old, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. So on May 12, so we're at May 16, so this is just now a few days ago. On May 12, the Reverend Charles Randall clarified in his sermon at the Solid Rock Church regarding John Paul's position. He said, he has not been fired. I have released him from ministerial functions for a minute to get some healing, some counseling, some guidance. You can't go through these things like this and just step right back to the same day. So just two days ago, on May 14, it was announced that the FBI has joined the investigation into Mica's death and the circumstances surrounding it. Officer Kevin Wheeler said the Federal Bureau of Investigations confirmed it is helping Robeson County investigate Mica Miller's death. So a lot of people are like, well, why are they getting involved? We know that this is confirmed to be a suicide. We know John Paul was a jerk, but essentially Mica took her own life. But interestingly, Solid Rock has announced, the church, that they are moving forward with their multi-million-dollar building project. They made a post saying, Solid Rock is moving forward with our new building project. We're excited to see all our members at our meeting May 19th at 5 p.m. So I have read a lot of speculation online that police or the FBI may be involved in terms of looking into the church's dealings and maybe John Paul's possible misappropriation of money and things like that, which would make more sense to me about why they are involved. But it's interesting that they are involved in essentially what is a suicide.
Yeah, I've seen it mentioned also that they're looking into some of his, like, charity type things. Like, he had something with, like, a charity in Africa with money where the donations that they received, like, they weren't handled correctly. Yeah. And that's something that's being looked into. I'm sure that more information will come out by the time this episode is released on all of this. So whatever else comes out, I'll add in clips if I can, or if we have to hop on and record again, we will. That's really it for, like, the timeline story currently. It hasn't been stated actually why the FBI is involved, but just that they're involved now.
There are some interesting articles. Like, as I said, there's so much information about this case online. There are some articles that have just come out today where John Paul's father has actually spoken about Mica. I'm just getting it up. So he has come out and said that she was a very, very sick woman. So like father, like son, I guess. His name is Reginald Miller. He has said, sorry, I'm just trying to find it. He has come out and said that she was suffering from mental illness. She tried to kill herself once before. He said, Mica was a very sick young woman. All have been covered up to protect her memory. I have a video of Mica where she tells last year how she took a gun to kill herself and pulled the trigger and the bullet locked in the gun. She also said that just 2 weeks after her marriage to John Paul, he had to stop her when she suddenly began shooting up the neighborhood. He said she spent the first 3 weeks in a mental facility and all the time since then. Her family refused to believe how sick she was, which, you know, obviously we now know that her death was a suicide. I just feel like all of this is unnecessary.
In the environment that she was in, and what John Paul was putting her through, like, we've only seen like a tiny bit. I'm sure there was tons. And what we've seen is horrible. Like, he was harassing her nonstop. She said that she was sexually abused. Like, she listed off a lot of things there. And I just think when you're trapped in an environment like that, you can't not be mentally ill. When, like, I've talked about this again recently, but when I had issues with a girl that, obviously it's a much smaller scale, but for my point, it works. I had issues with a girl when I was younger who was harassing me, and the harassment was constant. Obviously not as bad as this, and I'm not even trying to compare, but the constant harassment, it made me so paranoid and like afraid to do anything. Like, I was scared to go to school. I didn't want to leave my house. I didn't want to see my friends. I was so depressed. I was so anxious, and it really just causes you to be mentally ill. Like, it totally warps your perception of reality. And sometimes when it's so constant, it's almost like you're brainwashed in a way where you start believing what they're saying. Like, you're the horrible person, like, you're a piece of shit, like, you're the one causing all of this. It seemed like she, in the end, was finally like taking back her power. And that's what escalated the abuse, was when she was trying to get out. And that's why people who live in domestic violence situations say it's so hard to get out, because for the abuser, it's like all about control. And when you're finally starting to break free, they like really double down.
I was just reading a little bit more of this article about Reginald, who's John Paul's dad. It's quite funny because I think he must have emailed the Daily Mail, and the Daily Mail are like, the email had many grammatical errors. Imagine being called out by the Daily Mail. But this is some of the other stuff he said. So he talks about where she's buying the gun, because in the footage, she kind of just seems smiling, like she doesn't look distraught.
Normal.
You know, she's just chatting.
Just like how she was in the 911 call.
He says, did you see the smile on her face buying the gun? Is that a distraught woman? Did you ever see any crying or upsetting in her voice in her 911 call? No, because she was in one of her psychotic states. He also blamed her family. He said if a family would have left her the last time her doctor put her in a mental facility for a minimum of 3 weeks and had not checked her out and convinced her she did need drugs, I believe she would be alive today, happy and singing in church.
But if she was in a psychotic state, would she be acting like an average, normal-ass person buying a gun? Like, I think we've talked about this in other episodes that involve people who probably committed suicide, and the family's like, no, like, we don't believe it. They were happy. They were set. Like, when someone wants to kill themselves and kind of finally decides on it, they aren't, like, sobbing, hysterical messes. Like, some of them are happy because they know, like, it's almost over, or they feel good about their decision. Like, they know they're doing it. Not everyone who commits suicide in their last moments is like a sobbing, hysterical mess.
Interestingly, too, just before we move on, Reginald, the father, was charged with labour fraud, visa fraud, and failure to pay minimum wage in 2014. He served 15 months in prison after overseas students said that classes they were taught were a sham, and that Reginald forced them to work at the college or his home for little or no pay, and that he threatened to have them deported. So, interesting.
So the whole family is trash.
Basically.
Yeah, I absolutely hate people like John Paul Miller. Like, it really triggers this rage in me, people like him that hide behind religion to promote their abuse and their narcissism and say it's like by the word of God, and like you have all these followers that are listening to you. They just use it as a cover to what a horrible person they are. It makes me so irritated.
Definitely.
I don't know, final thoughts?
I don't really know what else to say. Obviously there was a lot of emotional abuse, especially going on with Mica. It's horrible. And I actually believe that she was mentally ill as well. Like, there was obviously things going on, but just John Paul is just trash. And the way that he's handled the situation, the way he's handled himself, you know, he's just a trash human being, essentially. I don't think, like, I really don't think he had anything to do with Mica actually pulling the gun, except for the abuse leading up to it, if that makes sense.
It just like makes you think, I feel like in these situations, and I guess maybe this is the debate, he should be held accountable to some extent. I brought up on Patreon, some people agreed that like if Michelle Carter could be held accountable for Conrad Roy's death because she texted him being like, go on, kill yourself, when he was saying that he was suicidal, why can't Pastor John Paul be held accountable for abusing her for years, which I would say led to her committing suicide? Like, why should people not be held accountable for that?
Yeah.
I guess the argument is it's like hard to prove, but this like seems like there's a good amount of proof.
And I have no doubt that there's other texts and things that we haven't seen. You know, obviously he's not going to be out there showing texts where he was a jerk or he said abusive things to her. So I'll be interested to see. I am interested why the FBI is involved. I'm assuming we will find out more about that as time goes on. But yeah, a very sad outcome for Mica's family, especially when they were aware of what was going on. You know, by Sierra's post, they were basically posting in real time as this emotional abuse was happening. But a very sad loss for them.
Yeah, it's just a really sad story. I hope as an absolute minimum that John Paul gets in trouble for some sort of financial fraud, something, anything, which will still be disappointing because I really feel like he does need to take some accountability for what he put Mica through. And at least as like the absolute barest minimum, this story is getting around online where a lot of people know that he is a piece of shit. And I've seen videos of protests being held outside of his church and like people screaming justice for Mica. Just keep doing that. Screw this guy. Make him miserable.
I wonder what Susie is thinking about all this. Like, does she really... I have no doubt. He's so manipulative anyway. Like, I have no doubt that he's feeding her some other whole story. But
at this point, with all that's come out, girl, get away.
Yeah. Like, every red flag has been shown to you. I can't believe that she still, as of early May anyway, was still hanging around.
Someone help her. Get her away from him. So after our episode aired, Mica's case continued to gain traction throughout mainstream and social media. In July 2024, JP settled with Mica's family. Mica's family, her estate, JP, and Solid Rock Church reached a confidential settlement in July 2024. The agreement resolved and released existing potential legal claims. The terms were sealed, so the public does not know how much money, if any, changed hands. Mica's family's attorneys said they considered the settlement a form of justice for Mica.
More allegations have continued to emerge against JP. The most significant were lawsuits alleging that he had sexually abused teenage girls decades earlier when he was involved in church activities. Those are separate allegations from Mica's death and shouldn't be confused with any criminal case involving Mica. JP has disputed the allegations against him and at least in one instance has pursued a defamation lawsuit. This is some info about some of the allegations from Court TV. It says the newest lawsuit was filed by a woman who wants to remain anonymous, filing as Jane Doe, who says that John Paul attacked her in 1999 while she was a student at Cathedral Hall Academy. The school, which was founded by JP's father, Reginald Wayne Miller, was connected to the family's church and entirely run by the two men. Jane Doe said in her lawsuit, plaintiff walked into a nightmare. Cathedral Hall Academy was not a school, it was a trap. What should have been a place of learning became a place of fear, control, and unchecked abuse. The plaintiff said that she was left alone with JP, who invited her to play the piano. When she turned to leave, JP allegedly gave her a hug and moved his hands down her back, past her waist, under her clothing, and touched her bare butt. So, yeah, just not a nice guy. On June 1st last year, 2025, JP married Susie Skinner in Myrtle Beach. We spoke about Susie in our original episode. They are married. There's photos of their wedding online. I took this little snippet about their wedding just because it made me laugh a little bit. It says, the beachfront ceremony took place at approximately 6 p.m. near a storm runoff drainage area in downtown Myrtle Beach. Several dozen people attended the gathering, including JP's scandal-scarred father, Reverend Reginald Wayne Miller. Just the storm watered running thing just made me laugh because just... So in December last year, 2025, JP was indicted by a federal grand jury on charges of cyber stalking and making false statements to federal investigators. The indictment alleges that JP engaged in a campaign of harassment against Mica from approximately November 2022 until her death in April 2024. According to federal prosecutors, JP repeatedly sent unwanted and harassing communications to her, contacted her more than 50 times in one day, allegedly placed tracking devices on her vehicle, allegedly interfered with her finance and daily activities, allegedly posted a nude photo of Mica online without her consent, allegedly damaged her vehicle's tyres, and allegedly hired a private investigator to monitor her. The Justice Department did issue a statement. This is just a little bit from that. I've put it on the blog if you want to read it all. But it says, federal investigators interviewed Miller about these allegations and he lied in his responses. He said he did not damage the victim's tyres when in fact he purchased a tyre deflation device online and sent messages to others regarding the victim's vehicle. He faces a maximum penalty of 5 years in prison for cyber stalking and 2 years in prison for false statements. He also faces a fine of up to $250,000. His arraignment is scheduled for January 12th, 2026 in federal court. So obviously we're now past that. He appeared in court in January and pled not guilty to both federal charges. He was released on a $100,000 unsecured bond with strict conditions, including ankle monitor, restrictions on travel, surrender of his passport, and restrictions of contact with Mica's family and potential witnesses. The federal case has been delayed repeatedly because of the amount of discovery and additional evidence that's been turned over. And the most recent update is that in July 2026, so just last month, a federal judge granted another continuance, moving the case into September 2026. A new jury selection date has not yet been announced. So basically, as of the time of recording, JP is awaiting his trial on those federal charges. So I just feel like this just shows his pattern of, he's not changing. Just shows, I feel like whatever we went through in the episode has just been a continuing theme. This guy is a jerk. He's trash. I can't believe Susie's going to marry him. I will be so interested to see what comes out if and when this trial ever goes ahead. Nothing has changed from my original thoughts that we probably gave in the first episode. Just a horrible, horrible person. It was a toxic relationship.
So that is it for this episode. We'd love to know what you guys think about this case. Once the documentary comes out, we'll maybe record some more thoughts on the whole thing if there's any new information in that. But definitely interested to hear what everyone thinks about this one because it is a very controversial, interesting case. So let us know what you guys think. Everything will be on the blog at truecrimesociety.com. Make sure you're following us on Instagram at True Crime Society. Mine is StephSum _ Olivia's TCS Olivia. If you want to see what we're up to, please leave us comments on Spotify, letting us know what you guys think about everything going on. If you could share the podcast and what you're doing while listening to the podcast to your Instagram story, we love to reshare them and all the usual things. Like I said, my brain is shot because I'm just in shambles over ruining our original recording. So I'm sorry. But that is it. Thank you guys for listening. Stay safe out there. Peace out.